Our first guests are here to evaluate Obama's Middle East tour. Today's focus on the enormous refugee stress placed on Jordan as a result of the Syrian civil war. Joining me now is Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Judith Miller and president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, Clifford. And Judy has just returned from the Middle East. The president, this has been a whirlwind tour, but it looks like he has made a very positive, at least, impression with this tour, if not a concrete result.
It was really an extraordinary tour for him, Lou. It was, as the Israelis called it, a thermonuclear charm offensive, and it worked. Talk about a reset in a relationship that was crying out for one. Basically, the president figured out, finally, in his second tour, that you attract more bees with honey in a country like Israel. He did everything he had to do to set a relationship on course that had been very rocky.
But was it, Clifford May, inconsistent and contradictory of the president to be talking about peace in the Middle East at the same time that he was threatening both Assad and Iran?
Well, yes, but of course Assad and Iran are both provocative. They're both belligerent. They're both destabilizing forces and have been for years in the Middle East. And so I don't think it's inconsistent. He understands. I think that the Israelis are reliable allies, valuable allies in very many ways. And they're in a very difficult neighborhood. Now, Assad going would be a good thing. The Israelis think so. 2 years ago, Obama called for that. It's going to be dicey after he goes, assuming he does go in any reasonable time frame. And Iran is still the world's leading sponsor of terrorism, oppressing its own people and illicitly building nuclear weapons which threaten everybody in the region. Israel, of course, but not only Israel.
Well, the president used the expression game changer, referring to Assad's use, if it were to occur, of chemical weapons. Was his visit to Israel a game changer?
I think it's a little too early to tell, because what we don't know is what those two men said behind closed doors. I mean, look, Lou, we should have no illusions here. However gemütlich, if we can use a German word, however warm and cozy,
can we find an English word?
However cozy.
One that I could pronounce, perhaps, if I wanted to repeat it?
However cozy the relationship, however warm the reception from the hand-picked students, these gentlemen have distinctly different agendas when it comes to issues like Iran. So I can't say that it was a game changer yet.
I almost agree with Judy, but not entirely, because I don't think that the two men have different agendas when it comes to Iran. And I think everything that was said, what you heard is that Obama and Netanyahu were much closer together on that. Look, what Obama said, and I'm going to take him at his word. He said, we're not going to allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. That's what Netanyahu wants to hear. He said, we're not going to allow Iran to have nuclear weapons and then attempt to contain Iran. Containment's not the policy. So they were much, much closer than they've been on the very key subject of Iran, the most threatening force in the Middle East.
Let's turn to something I did not want to hear. And that was Shimon Peres talking about, quote, America is not chicken. America and President Obama are ready to attack Iran. I found that there may be all sorts of excuses, rationalizations, and reasons that the president of Israel said that. But Judy, this is too bellicose for my taste. And what about you?
Well, I think Shimon Peres says exactly what's on his mind, and I think that a 90-year-old president, who is the man, after all, who helped Israel acquire its own nuclear weapons, which have never been formally acknowledged by Israel, of course, was reminding Israel and the United States that the top agenda item for Israel is making sure that Iran does not cross its red line. And here I'm going to disagree with my good friend Clifford May. I think the two men are not closer to coming to agreement on what that definition of getting a nuclear weapon is.
And King Abdullah, Cliff, if you'd like to respond to Judy on this issue.
Well, very quickly, I mean, it's a tricky issue because there is a difference, but it's partly based on the fact that the U.S. and Israel have different capabilities in terms of stopping Iran, but they agree on stopping Iran. Now, those capabilities that Israel lacks, the U.S. could help with those. And that gets back to what Judy said that I agree with. We don't know what was said backstage between the two men. Did Obama say to Netanyahu, if you go independently, we will have your back? I'm not just saying that. We will. Did he say we're going to give you weapons capabilities you don't have, which will extend your timeline so that you can wait a little bit longer and be a little more patient? We don't know. But the things Netanyahu wanted to hear from Obama about Iran, I think he mostly heard. And I think Obama reduced his parameters somewhat because he was very clear. What Shimon Peres said, you're right, Lou, was not the right way to say it, but it wasn't very different from what Vice President Biden has said, which is Obama doesn't bluff.
With all due respect to the Vice President, and I'll leave it at that. Judith Miller, thank you so much. Clifford May, thank you.
Thank you, Lou.